A lot of women now, as you can imagine, being a female athlete, a young female athlete, with their body already going through changes as it is, you being taller, more muscular, more defined, we all realized that that wasn't necessarily something that was very comfortable even 5 or 10 years ago. Now these young women have an opportunity to sort of look at exactly like how I could be, what is actually possible. And when you think about that growth trajectory, that's definitely why it's good for business.
Think about it, what brand would not want to be associated with exactly what you just said?
Exactly.
To that point too, I mean, girls drop out of sport at a rate 2x of boys by the time they're 14. And it's because exactly what you said. Bodies are changing. It's no longer feels cool to be so athletic. Girls are trying on makeup and different clothing. And so how do we keep girls in sport is imperative to develop the next set of diverse leaders like we have here in this room, the next set of fans, the future fan, and then the future player.
But it's also having someone to look up to that is driven and that being okay, right? To miss the prom for a game, right? And like that, to make that acceptable for a woman is just, that's transformative, right? And then to see these women also go on and they hustle, right? They have their brand, they play their sport, but they have side gigs. They're doing good work and they're forming companies.
Is the fact that girls who play become women who lead. And it's important that the girls on the court today can see themselves in the women that are on the court on their televisions. And we represent a league that is 80% women of color, many who identify as LGBTQ+, and that's important. And it's important that every voice on the court is heard, not just the loudest voices.
And I think that's why what I view sort of, I was an athlete, Division I basketball athlete coming up when the WNBA was just launching in Atlanta, right, around the Olympics. And when we were going into sport, to me, the stories have always been there. The potential to be leaders are there because that's what your coaches are on you about the time and what does it mean to be an athlete. But I think this thing around the accountability of how to uplift and market women has changed because there is a voice now that we didn't have.
The reality is that for the sports fan, women athletes have become athletes. Their performance on the court, their athleticism, in many cases even more popular than men's sports. And I think that's a big change because you're going to get way beyond what had been the typical women's sports fan to now become a fan of sports that are played by women. Yes. And that goes to marketing, that goes to branding, that goes to endorsements, it goes to so many other things. And I do think that the vernacular needs to change, really about this happens to be sports played by women versus just women's sports.
It's such a good point. I mean, you can use, and as a brand, partner, and we're not just going to partner to market to women. Right? Like it's to market to everyone. I mean, just personally, I'm raising 3 boys and they, not even me, watch just as much women's sports as they do male. And I think that is a little bit of a shift. I feel like, again, 10 years ago, when you looked at the sponsors for a lot of women's sports leagues, they were maybe health and beauty or things that were very, focused to just the female population, but now it's broader than that.
What do brands need to do to change the way they think about using partnerships with athletes or sponsorship of athletes such that we don't take what is a moment to maybe do it better or do it right, but like end up in a place where we're only doing hair products or cosmetics?
What I'm interested in, would love to hear from the brand perspective, is just like, longevity matters, right? So, and you're probably seeing this too. There's not enough inventory. I want to do an ad campaign. That's great. Your ad campaign that's going to run for 6 weeks is not going to transform the future of our league nor the future of our players. I want partners who want to do multi-year partnerships, who will understand the patience it takes to really see the true ROI and allow us to really work together to build this thing, because it's not going to happen just this season and just this month.
I think I guess from my perspective, when I was playing, we could not have jobs. When I'm thinking about the NCAA as the pipeline, the major pipeline into WNBA or other professional sports. And I think the NIL this year or the last couple of years have really switched. There's a paradigm shift around brands that are now following athletes into their professional careers. And I do see in collegiate there, you do get some of those bigger brands, but it does tend to be still around fashion, or it tends to be around food or things that are actually more at their intersection of their identity versus then when they move into professional brands. So I do think there's this interesting dynamic that did not exist before around athletes being able to be paid when they're now college athletes, that wasn't really necessarily there as they've moved into their professional careers.
I think the intersection where the sport layers on the fashion plus the music, there's a cultural and racial dynamic to it, right? And that it is part of, as we always say, sport is a microcosm of the world that we live in and the country that we live in. And so when that all of those things layer and you can sort of see things play out and you can react to that, and that, sometimes that helps us have different kinds of conversations. But that also adds to the intrigue and the culture, and every article that comes, the last few weeks has that undertone to it.
Talking about from a multi-year perspective, at ESPN, multi-year advertising sponsorships have been a touchstone of our sports investment for a number of years. And we are actually getting a lot of requests, and actually we are requesting that if you're looking for a significant position within women's sports across ESPN, that it has to be more than 1 year. And you should really think about investing that. It could be 2-3 years, because you're going to have an opportunity to get at the ROI and then to be able to leverage it.
What have we done, or what is true 3 years from now, that all of this excitement and hope that we feel has realized our aspirations, or maybe even beyond?
I would hope that we have maintained and created a space for these athletes to show up authentically. And we've protected that and not, made them feel like they need to show up less than, but they get to stay themselves in their own brand, in the market, and in the world.
I would say that marketer investment is going to increase, 50x, which is one that's going to be very, very, very important to support these athletes and the leagues, and that there will be a better appreciation for the diversity of the female athlete.
I want more players as household names. Yes. That I think that is a key driver. And I just want the player experience to increase. So we've just added charter this year. I'm looking forward to what we can do with salary caps. And so I think if those three things are where if we all do our work correctly, those three things will be where they should be, because the investment from the entire ecosystem, which is what we need to support this, will have come together in the right way.
I would hope that there's true equity in pay, and that we have the rights, yes. And that we are on, all of the channels, and that, the viewership increases, and that therefore informs, the pay, and that it's equitable.
I'd like to think that the success and the continuing success of the WNBA would fuel the rise of other women's sports.
Yes.
And that we see more WNBAs. And that means that everything we're saying, there's more household names, there's better sponsorship deals, and that women's sports are as popular for the sponsorship and advertising community as men's. And I actually think we're on our way.
I'm hoping that this becomes an on-ramp, so that we don't just, it used to be, it was cool to be pretty. And now it's cool to be sporty. I'd really love it if it could be cool to be smart. And if we can use this as a way to celebrate women in the holistic way and not just sort of see them as performative creatures, I think, that would be another really great win for us.
Yeah, I love it.